Today we will see that. Could you survive in ancient Egypt? Well, maybe. But only if you have a lot of luck and a good guide. If you're watching this, then chances are that you're going to be visiting or living in ancient Egypt. That's because the history of this incredible place is one of the most dramatic and fascinating stories ever told. From the pharaohs to Cleopatra, from Alexander the Great to Caesar Augustus, there's never been a more dramatic time in human history than right now. The Egyptians believed that everything they did was for their gods, who they called pharaohs. They also believed that their lives were defined by their deaths, that every moment was important, whether it was spent doing something great or doing something small. So they took care not just of themselves but also of everything around them. They built pyramids so that they could honor their ancestors. They made tombs for dead relatives so that they could continue to live on after death. And they created magical spells so that everyone else could benefit from the power of those spirits too. So how did these amazing people live? Well, first we have to take a look on both advantages and disadvantages of living there. So, let's start with advantages. So, ancient Egypt was a great place to live. The Egyptians were one of the oldest civilizations in the world. They first appeared around 4500 BC. They made a lot of amazing things, like pyramids and mummies, which are still being studied today. Ancient Egypt also had a lot of harsh rules. For example, the people would have to pay taxes to the government and obey their leaders' commands. If they didn't obey these rules, there would be punishments like death or imprisonment for them. But it's not all bad news. There were also some fun parts about living during this time period. For example, there were lots of festivals where everyone could go out into public spaces and celebrate together with music and dance performances. Now let's talk about some disadvantages. Did you know that in ancient Egypt, the average lifespan was only 18 years? That's right, the average person didn't live past the age of 30. And that's not just because of how dangerous it was to move around. It's also because there weren't a lot of medical advances in those days, so people were more likely to die from infections or other illnesses. So what would your life have been like if you'd lived in ancient Egypt? Well, it would have been pretty rough. You probably wouldn't have gotten much sleep, because every time you closed your eyes, there was a chance you'd be killed by a lion or crocodile or something else that lurked around the pyramids at night. You might have had some time to read books and write poetry and stuff like that. But if you wanted to go out into the world and do something amazing like inventing the wheel or building pyramids on your own dime, like the pharaoh Tutankhamun, you probably wouldn't have been able to do it, because there just weren't enough workers for all those projects back then. Luckily for us today, we've got modern medicine and antibiotics and things like that, but as you have get to know that how would be life there. So, it's up to you to decide that. Would you like to live there or not? So that's it for today. We will meet tomorrow with another video. Till then, keep